students, let's learn English together. Today we are going to learn how to answer section B, continuous writing using a narrative essay. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to explain the structure of section B, continuous writing, describe the advantages of writing a narrative essay, and you should be able to illustrate the characteristics of a good narrative essay. Ready to begin? Good! Let's look at a brief overview on section B, continuous writing in the English SPM paper. Continuous writing carries 50 marks. You will be given 5 questions. You only have to answer one. You have 1 hour to choose your question, plan your framework, write the essay, and check for any grammatical errors. So how does the examiner mark your essay? Normally, the examiner will mark your essay based on impression. This means there is no fixed formula. However, they will evaluate your essay based on several criteria, which are grammar, vocabulary, sentence structure, spelling, punctuation, tone, and style. Based on these criteria, they will determine suitable marks for your essay. So it is important for you to have adequate knowledge in these areas so that you can score high marks for your exam. In this lesson, we will specifically focus on how to answer section B using a narrative essay, as it commonly appears in the SPM. Before we begin, let's explore the frequency of narrative essays appearing in section B. We will specifically focus on questions from 2010 to 2014. In 2010, students were required to write a story beginning with, "It had been raining all day." In 2011, students were required to write a story that ends with, "They looked at each other and smiled meaningfully." In 2012, students were required to write a story beginning with, "The teacher walked into the classroom. It was the first period." In 2013, students were required to write a story that ends with, "And so I became a better person." And in 2014, students were required to write a story about a fisherman beginning with, "The wind blew strongly. Out at sea." Based on these question samples, we can see that students were asked to complete a story with a certain sentence. It can be either at the beginning or at the end of the essay. In other words, students can determine their own plot and write anything they want. So why do we choose narratives for continuous writing? Well, there are several advantages. First, you will only write your essay in the past tense. This will reduce confusion when choosing your tenses. Secondly, a narrative enables you to visualize the situation and allows you to express your creativity. Thirdly, you can use a wide range of vocabulary to make your story interesting. Next, a narrative is easier to write compared to a factual or argumentative essay. This is because you don't need to present any facts. And finally, you are not required to discuss any current issues around you. So how do we write a good narrative essay? Well, that is easy. You can follow these simple tips when you are writing your essay. Tip 1. Understand your grammar. Having a good understanding of English grammar is one of the most essential elements in writing. Most of the time, students are able to write an interesting narrative. However, their lack of understanding in the grammar department brings their marks down. As I have mentioned earlier, we use the past tense when we write a narrative essay. When we use the past tense, we normally add D, ED, and IED to the end of the verbs. For example, smile will become smiled. Walk will become walked. Fry will become fried. However, this rule does not apply to irregular verbs. We have to change the form and the spelling of these verbs. For example, eat will become ate, sleep will become slept, swim will become swam, and catch will become caught. This is only a fragment of grammatical items that you have to cover. For this reason, you have to revise and practice a lot to reinforce your understanding of English grammar. Tip 2. Use a wide range of vocabulary and phrases when writing your narrative. In order to write a good narrative essay, you need to have a wide range of vocabulary. This is to ensure that your story is interesting to the reader. As I previously mentioned, the examiner will mark your essay based on impression. Hence, you should use interesting words and phrases in your essay. Let's have a look at these examples.
The wind blew strongly. Out at sea, there was a small boat. There, Ali tried to catch some fish. He felt slightly ill, but he had to go out fishing. His wife and child were waiting for him at home. Although he was poor, he was positive about life.
Now let's look at our second example.
The wind blew strongly. Out at sea, the waves rocked a small boat. There, Ali waited for a fish to bite. He felt a little under the weather, but he had to go out. He had to make ends meet. His hungry wife and child were waiting for him patiently at home. His job as a fisherman was not an easy one. It was tough, harsh, and dangerous. Even though he lived in poverty all his life, he never complained. He believed that every cloud has a silver lining.
So what is your opinion about these two examples? I bet most of you will feel that the second example is more interesting compared to the first one. Let me tell you why. First, example 1 has limited vocabulary. Second, example 1 does not reflect a sense of maturity in writing. Thirdly, the descriptions used in example 1 are lacking in detail. In contrast, example 2 vividly describes the life of the fisherman with appropriate use of vocabulary. Lastly, we can see the use of various adjectives and idiomatic expressions in example 2. This adds color to the story. So how can you make your essay more interesting? Well, that's easy. You can substitute common words and phrases with other words that have the same meaning. For example, the word poor can be replaced by words like destitute, impoverished, penniless, and living in poverty. A thesaurus may be handy in this situation. If you don't have one, use the internet to your advantage. There are many websites that you can use to find words with the same meaning. Next, you must include at least 2 idiomatic expressions in your essay. In example 2, the writer used 3 idiomatic expressions which are make ends meet, which means to earn enough money to live, under the weather, which means feeling slightly ill, and every cloud has a silver lining, which means to be optimistic. If possible, try to add 1 idiomatic expression in each of your paragraphs. This will make your essay more interesting and colorful. In addition, it gives the impression to the marker that you have a good command of English. Tip 3. Use plot structure in your narrative. In order to make your essay interesting, you can use plot structure. It is also known as dramatic structure. You might be familiar with this concept as it is always highlighted in your literature component. So how do you use plot structure in your essay? First, begin your essay with an exposition. This is the introduction of your story. It gives your readers the background information that is needed to understand your story. This information can include an introduction to your characters, settings, and so forth. Then, continue your essay with a rising action. Rising action consists of events that lead up to the climax. Next, add climax to your story. The climax is considered the highest point or the most exciting part of the story. This is where all the rising action and conflict that has been building up to the story finally reaches the peak. It is usually the moment of greatest danger or decision making for the main character. Then move on to your falling action. The falling action deals with events which occur right after the climax. These events are usually the after effects of the climax. Finally, wrap up your story with a resolution. This marks the end of the falling action and the conclusion to the story. It can also be the end of the plot that reveals the final outcome of its conflicts or the solution of its mysteries. And this is how you write a good narrative essay. These are elements you have to consider when you write your narrative essay. Number 1, give a proper title to your essay. This means that the title must be relevant to the plot. If you are writing about a fisherman, you can use these following suggestions. For example, A Day at Sea, The Life of a Fisherman, or Ali the Fisherman. Number 2, remember that you only have 1 hour to write your essay. Good time management is the key to successful writing, so plan your time wisely. Number 3, your essay should be around 350. Don't write any longer than this. The longer you write, the more mistakes you will make. Number 4, include a dialogue in your essay. For instance, you can write, Ali said to himself, "Where are all the fish? I can't go home empty-handed." This is to show that you have sufficient knowledge of punctuation, and that is a very good skill to have. Number 5, include words that make relevant sounds. For example, swoosh, swoosh. Ali could hear the sound of the waves hitting his boat. Swoosh, swoosh. The word doesn't carry any meaning, but it gives the reader a feel of the setting in your story. And number 6, check your essay for any grammatical, spelling, or punctuation errors. I hope you have learned new things from this video, and I hope to see you again soon. Till next time, bye!